Talk about a complete 180. Hey everybody, welcome to Mainly Movies. Today I'm going to be talking about the 17th film in the MCU, Marvel's 2017 sci-fi superhero sequel, Thor Ragnarok. If you're new here, please consider subscribing for a variety of movie-related content like reviews, rank lists, and trailer reactions. All my reviews include a breakdown of the pros and cons, my rating, and subtitled film recommendations, so be sure to watch through to the end of this video for all of that extra content. Thor Ragnarok stars Chris Hemsworth, Tessa Thompson, and Cate Blanchett, and was directed by Taika Waititi. It tells the continuing story of Thor, played by Chris Hemsworth, who must escape captivity in order to save Asgard from destruction. It's no secret that the Thor franchise isn't exactly my favorite branch of the MCU. The Shakespearean drama of the first film, the unbearable dullness of the Dark World. It was a rough start, especially for someone like me who never really liked the character of Thor much to begin with. After the Dark World, it seemed unlikely that we'd get another standalone Thor movie. I know I certainly wasn't pining for one. So when Thor Ragnarok was announced, not only was I a bit surprised, but I had next to no interest in it. But this was right in the midst of the MoviePass heyday, so I did go see the movie because of that. And I also saw the trailer ahead of other movies, basically every other day for a few months leading up to it. And it certainly looked like it was going to be a bit different, but I had no idea just how different. The MCU has always had a healthy dose of humor to it. In the early days of Phase 1, there was always that running comparison between DC's dark and gritty movies and Marvel's brighter, more fun films. There have been exceptions on both sides, but the MCU certainly tends to run on the jokier side of things. All the films have elements of this, but some lean into that comedy a bit harder than others, namely the Guardians of the Galaxy and Ant-Man movies. And despite coming on the remarkably dull heels of The Dark World, Ragnarok joined the comedic ranks as one of the most humor-heavy and fun films in the MCU, and one of the most colorful and visually striking as well. This 180 of a tonal shift is surprising, and maybe a bit jarring if watched in sequence with the other Thor movies. It's definitely a divisive shift. Fans of the strong, regally godly version of Thor, or people who despise the MCU's tendency towards deflective moments of humor, will be turned off by this shift. But those who had become disenchanted by Thor as a series or as a character may find the unexpected transition exactly what the series needed. Taika Waititi initially seemed like an odd choice for director here. I knew his earlier film, What We Do in the Shadows, and honestly couldn't even picture what a comic book movie helmed by him would look like. But he brought a strange, compelling energy to this movie, and injected humor and campy quirkiness in a way that hadn't before been seen in the MCU. As I mentioned before, the comedy here will always be a bit divisive. I enjoy the humor and bizarre moments in general, but I have no problem admitting that plenty of the jokes don't land for me, or carry on far longer than they should. It gets a bit weird at times, but balances its tone remarkably well to create an incredibly entertaining experience. Self-referential, self-deprecating, extremely energetic and colorful, this movie takes some of the issues from the previous two films and pokes fun at them, in a way that works without being mean-spirited. For instance, one of the things that was always a little iffy for me in Thor and The Dark World was the dramatically delivered mythological exposition. Obviously, there's a lot of lore that needs to be explained to those of us who aren't familiar with the comics, but it always came across as really hokey. And this movie recognizes that and breaks up its own similar moments with bits of humor. It's also a very action-packed film, and quite violent for a Thor movie. It's not just CG frost giants or elves taking the brunt of the damage this time. Along with the tonal shift, we see a shift in Thor as a character. He's always had a bit of humor to him, drive fish out of water, or snarky comebacks, but he's much more deliberately funny this time around. It makes him an enjoyable character, but there's really not much of an arc or change here for him, other than a new haircut. Other characters are also enjoyable. We see some returning fan favorites like Loki, Odin, and Heimdall. There's some bizarre but fitting newcomers like Korg and the Grand Master, even a surprisingly significant role for my other least favorite core Avenger. But the star players here, besides Thor, are Valkyrie and Hela. Both bring emotional depth to the story, albeit in different ways, and both fully capture your attention anytime they're on screen. Hela is a formidable villain, certainly the most formidable and brutal we've seen in the Thor franchise up to this point. Unsurprisingly, but disappointingly, she's underused, but still very good. Luckily, Valkyrie has a bit more to do and is a standout element of this film, both comedically and thematically. As with the previous Thor films, Ragnarok suffers from its grand cosmic scale and the divided focus that produces. While Thor and the Dark World were largely split between Asgard and Earth, Ragnarok is split between Asgard and Sakaar. Not only is the story split, but the tone is also quite split, with most of the drama occurring on Asgard and the comedy on Sakaar. There's some tonal bleed over, but it definitely feels like two different movies until the third act comes along to tie the relatively distinct storylines together again. It's certainly an entertaining film, but one where surprisingly little actually happens. It doesn't feel like that while you're watching, of course. It's a well-paced and fun movie, but other than a pivotal first act moment and the conclusion, the plot here is surprisingly minimal. Alright, let's talk about the pros and cons. Pro number one is the tone. It's certainly not uncommon for MCU films to be fun, but this one takes things to a brighter, funnier, and quirkier level than most. Not all of the humor works for me, but the self-aware campiness and extremely fun, entertaining vibe does. Big fans of the original Thor in the MCU, or from the comics, might be frustrated by the funnier, lighter turn that the franchise's tone takes here, but for me, it really helped to revive my interest in this character. The second pro has got to be the characters. In part, this is sort of an offshoot of the tone from Pro 1, because the most noticeable change here is with Thor himself. He always had a little bit of humor to him, but it was very much buried within that Shakespearean, dramatic, mythological aspect of his character. In this movie, he becomes a very funny character. There's not much of a character arc this time around, but he's got far more quips and jokes than he's had in the past, making him very likable and entertaining. There are a lot of other pretty decent characters in this, at least for what they are, but the two major standouts for me were Hela and Valkyrie. Hela is definitely the best true villain we've had in the Thor franchise so far. She's certainly underused here, but not in a way that makes her seem like a disappointing character. And this film served as our introduction to Valkyrie, who's had smaller roles in some of the other movies since, but she's actually a very interesting and compelling character in this, even with all of the comedy surrounding her interactions with just about everybody. On the con side, the biggest issue is the divided focus of the story. Now, this is something that really all of the Thor films have struggled with. Because of how grand a scale the Thor stories can play out on, Asgard, Earth, the Nine Realms, and basically all of space, it can be a little tough to keep things feeling cohesive, and that lack of cohesion crops up here. The first act and end of the third act feel like part of the same story, but basically Thor's entire time on Sakaar, while very entertaining, seems like a highly disconnected comedic tangent. Plot-wise, it works in the sense that it keeps him away from Asgard, allowing everything to happen there, but the things happening on Asgard just feel so removed from what's happening on Sakaar. Before I give you my rating and recommendations, I want to remind you that if you're interested in buying Thor Ragnarok or any of the other films I mentioned today, I do have affiliate links for all of them in the description below. I get a small commission from anything you buy using one of my links, so I'd really appreciate it if you use them if you're in the market for any of these movies. I'm gonna give Thor Ragnarok 3.5 out of 5 paws. It might not be the most impactful or well-constructed MCU story, but its complete tonal shift from the previous Thor films revives this branch of the MCU and results in pure, energetic, and colorful fun. I would recommend Thor Ragnarok to people who like the more comedic, fun films within the MCU. If you're looking for serious story arcs or comic accuracy, this probably isn't going to be the film for you. But if you want some quirky entertainment and a good dose of silliness, this could be the MCU movie for you. If you've been underwhelmed by the previous two Thor films, it might be worth giving this one a shot, because it is very, very different. If you liked Thor Ragnarok, I would recommend Guardians of the Galaxy. Not only is it one of the more comedic and fun-forward films in the MCU, but it's also another cosmic space adventure. If you're interested in getting to know some of these characters a bit better, you might want to check out the original Thor. Tonally, it's quite different, but it will give you an idea of where Thor begins his journey, as well as a good sense of the unstable relationship between him and Loki. And if you liked the tone of this film and want to watch another film directed by Taika Waititi, I would suggest Jojo Rabbit. It's a very satirical film that deals with some incredibly dark stuff, but it is quite funny and remarkably heartfelt. Alright, a couple questions for you guys. Number 1, have you seen Thor Ragnarok? If so, what'd you think of it? And number 2, which MCU movie has surprised you the most? Be sure to leave your answers in the comments below so we can get a discussion going. Alright, so if you got some enjoyment, insight, or information out of this review, I'd appreciate it if you'd hit that like button. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe while you're at it to see more videos like this. Till next time, this has been Alyssa with Mainly Movies, the way life should be.